Hello students, welcome to E-Pathashala. I am Professor Chellam, working for Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College. Today I am going to take you to learn a new module titled Processed and Preserved Foods Used by Food Industries. First, we'll see the introduction part. 10 or 15 years ago, the use of convenient foods could have been considered mere a drop in the bucket. Today, frozen foods prepared in the industries are available in great abundance and far beyond just being a convenience. They have become a necessity without which the modern food service operator now would be deprived of his most effective weapon in the battle of ever-mounting cost of operation. In experienced hands, frozen foods and all preserved foods, prepared and prefabricated foods are tremendous versatility, allowing creativity to once again play a part in food industry. Now, food service industries are switching their views into processed convenient foods to balance the rising labor charges, the rising material cost, growing food technology, and demand of efficient working personnel. Today, almost around 98% of the food service establishments using processed and preserved foods, and only a few rural regions couldn't access them. So there is a boon for processed food industry to supply their commodities to food service industries too. Now let's going to see the objectives. From this module, you will be going to learn about the importance of processed foods, the usage of processed foods in the commercial food industries, and the role of preserved commodities accepted and rejected by the food service establishments. Students, let's see now the food processing sector. An overview. In India, most foods consumed in fresh form and only in a small quantity is processed for value addition. However, with this trend changing gradually, the market of processed foods is expanding in India. Increased morbidity and aspirations, the exposure to the availability of the wider range of products, easily available credit facilities, and higher disposable incomes have resulted in greater spending in consumption. Among the affluent and middle income classes, the share of expenditure on food, vice versa, other consumption categories have declined, despite the fact that the total expenditure on food has increased across all classes. Initially, food expenditure was concentrated on basic items like grains, vegetable oils, sugars. However, there is now an increase in the inclusion of fruits, vegetables, eggs, meats, beverages, and processed foods, thanks to both increased availability and affordability. There has been an accelerating shift from the food security to nutritional security and convenient food in the recent past. According to Ministry of Food Processing Industries, Government of India, the food processing industry contributes almost around 1.5% of India's GDP, and it provides the direct employment to almost 13 million people per annum. The industry is dominated by many small-scale enterprises and involves a limited value addition. The food processing industries in India have grown at a ratio of 8.5% over the past 5 years, whereas the registered food processing units are growing at only 11%. So there is a need for growing food processing industries and sectors in India, and it will add more values to the economical empowerment of our country. The growing concern of our country definitely require more and more food production, simultaneously more food processing on the farm field itself. Now students, I'm going to take you to learn what are the food processed foods, what are they, how are they differ from preserved foods. Now let's see processed foods. Processed foods are foods of natural origin that has been altered in some way by which it has been made into convenient food for cooking or eating. All processed foods are not necessarily industrially made. Many of them are processed at home also. Yes, for example, we boil milk for drinking. That is a processing technology we adopt at home. We also process vegetables for making pulav. making masalas, making gravies. All these comes under processing at home. But what are preserved foods? Preserved foods are foods that are processed for shelf life enhancement. When some foods are grown in this world amply during the season, that will be those amply produced food materials will be lost. So by using some scientific principles that can be controlled with the help of adding some materials or by adopting some techniques, we will modify the food items into some other form, and we prevent them from the spoilage causing microorganisms and enzymes. So this kind of modifications and additions and deletion of certain things on food items make the foods get preserved for a longer period of time. So all preserved foods are generally called as processed foods, whereas all processed foods are not necessary to be preserved once. Hope you would understood what is the actual difference between a processed food from preserved food. Now we will see the types or classification of processed foods that are commercially available in our country. Processed foods available in several forms in this world. They are foods that require very minimal processing. That is, they are processed very minimally. That is the requirement of processing. For example, cooking may require very little for some food items. For some food items, they don't require cooking at all. Packed foods and vegetables, they don't require much of cooking. Polished and cleaned cereal products need not require a kind of cleaning and washing. Powdered pulse and spiced products need not require roasting and grinding. So all these food products are quite convenient enough to handle and to get it done on the stove for preparation of any dish. So this is a kind of food processed food which is commercially available. Next one is foods processed to enhance the shelf life. They are nothing but the preserved foods. Just now we have seen what are called preserved foods. Foods that are spoilable in nature. When they are amply produced in some seasons, they can be made it into some other form by adding salt, sugar, or sometimes spices, oils, or sometimes we remove the moisture by exposing them into sunlight, and in the dryer, we'll keep them in the dryer. So food items, they lose some kind of its quality by which it can extend its own shelf life. Some of the examples that are for preserved foods are canned vegetables, canned fish, pickled vegetables, cucumbers, jams, jellies, marmalades, preserves, etc., etc. Now, the next classification of processed food is foods that are added with several ingredients such as sweeteners, spices, oils, colors, preservatives, etc. Some food items are added with colors, flavors, and additional materials in order to make it more attractive. For example, the foods, the ice cream mixes or cake mixes are added with color and flavor in order to make it more attractive. Instant soup mix, classical example for preparation of added items like soup mix is made out of dried vegetable powder along with spices and condiments in order to make it more palatable and flavorful. Instant spice mixes for the preparation of gravies and dishes that are very important, play very important and essential role in Indian culinary practices. Nowadays it's available in the instant form. They are actually made of all different kind of spices roasted and grounded and powdered and packed. Rasam powder is one classic example of Indian, especially South Indian cuisine, which is very popular all around the world. These foods are generally called as instant foods. Yes, instant foods are the need of the hour. People who are traveling from here and there, they require to have their foods on their hand without doing much preparations. So instant foods are very popular nowadays. Then the next classification of processed food is ready to eat foods. What are ready to eat foods? Foods that are needed in minimal preparation or foods that don't require any preparation at all. They are called ready to eat foods. They're nothing but you can just open the pocket and eat it. That's it. Okay, for example, the foods that are prepared out of milk products, sometimes ice creams, beverages, bottled beverages, breakfast cereals, pongal, which is prepared and packed in a processed way, and ice creams that are available in the cups and cones, candies, jams, jellies, yogurts, breads, biscuits, cakes. They don't require furthermore preparations. They are ready to eat. You can carry all these ready to eat food items along with your journey whenever and wherever you go. You can just have your food without any troubles. So this is the utmost importance and speciality of ready to eat foods. Yes, then the next classification of processed food is foods that are packed to save time and stay fresh. Yes, all foods are not like cultivated from the farm, just like that we are not taking it. We actually buy foods from the commercial market. So when generally buy the food items, we see the food items that are being packed. Why do we need to pack the food items? Foods that are packed inside the packets, which are actually kept quality fresh without the attack of any microorganisms. They also save time while handling the food items. They also damage protected. So this is the actual and typical role why we need to pack the food items. So some food items or majority of the food items that are not cooked generally be available in the commercial market nowadays. They are packed. Packed foods are quality touched ones. Example, all frozen vegetables, meats, pizzas, pies, even the vegetables nowadays commercially available in the local market also, like green peas, tomatoes, onions, even green leafy vegetables today, chopped and cut vegetables, all are available in the market in a packed form. So today, without food processing, it is impossible for us to survive. This is what is the scenario today in our country is concerned. Hope students you would have understood the importance of food processing now. I am going to take you to see why food processing and what is the importance of food processing and what is the need for processed foods, especially in concern with food production industries, with several reasons. I'm going to explain you some of the important requirements or the needs why food production industries also nowadays take food processed foods as part of their production. Let's see one after the other. The first important objective why processed foods in food production industry are changing lifestyle of the consumers. Today's consumer is a very modern consumer, very educated consumer, and he lives in the industrially developed world, and he expects more leisure activities at home, and he expects more from where he is going to take his food. Their growing awareness about food and their composition and the interest in finding foods from the market all becomes a mandatory one for the food production industries to take it as a challenge to serve the food products in a very quick and possible and tasty way, for which the food production industries, they need to have convenient foods than traditionally prepared foods. The reason why convenient foods than traditionally prepared foods for the changing lifestyle of the customer is today's customer is expecting a lot of food items that are available in the world. It is highly impossible to get all those foods that are available in Africa, China, all those food items that are not necessarily be available in our country without processing. But with the help of the processing only, it is possible for us to reach or to get all those food items today in our storage area, so which the food consumers get all types of food materials in this food production industries by using convenient foods. What is the next importance of food processing in food industries? Social mobility of the consumers. With this growing change in this world's industrialization, people move from one part of the world to the other very quickly, with very often also. They go for business, they go for education, and they go for research, and they go for anything, even for tourism. This results in rise in fast food operations all around the world. Generally, grills and barbecue restaurants are very, very popular all around the world when the people who are moving around the world. They are very quick to eat and convenient to have. With the mobile and vending restaurants, it's possible for the consumers who go around the world to get any type of food items at their own doorstep itself. This results in food service establishments to prefer commercial and processed foods. When they have commercial processed foods only, it's possible for them to get all kind of food items available at their doorstep, and they can able to satisfy the mobile customers all around the world. Then the next importance is handling and storage requirements. As all processed foods require less timing working hours for preparation, are well received by the food service outlets. Today, food service outlets also would like to prepare more food products at a little quantity of time. To save time and energy, he also requires much works are to be done in a shortest and small way. More compact and neatly packed processed foods occupy very less space in his kitchen, and also it requires very limited time for the production. So he can able to satisfy the requirements of the consumer very quickly by using those processed foods. So these are all added features for its popularity. Now, the next importance is quality and safety. The educated consumers of this world, also they are aware of the quality and safety issues that arise out of food and food products that are surrounded by us. All consumers today require good quality foods, clean foods and safe foods. All would like to take food items whatever they have paid for. All they require, what they expect is they want to have a good nutrition from that food also. So when to see all these kind of criteria, quality is more dominating feature in food service industries to serve food for the consumers. So when if you see processed food industries, all the food items that are supplied by the food processed industries are quite quality assured because they are packed, they are properly preserved, and they are microorganisms free, and they are completely tested. So processed foods can ensure the safety for consumers too. This is also another attractive reason why food production industries expects processed foods compared to traditional and unprocessed foods. Next one, better portion control. The food production industry is concerned the quality and the quantity what they serve for the consumer is very, very important. At the same time, the money what they are getting back is also equally important. The profit what they want to have and the investment what they have had all depends upon one important quality which is called portion control. Portion control is nothing but a method by which you ensure the number of portions that are arrived out of the recommended quantity of food what you prepare. For example, if you wish to make 4 chapatis, you will have to take 1 cup of atta. If that is going to be your portion, every time whenever you make, you will have to take 1 cup of maida or wheat for making 4 parathas or 4 chapatis. That is what is called portion control. When this portion control is actually done in a proper way, the consumer will also be very happy, and the producer will also make it possible to avoid a lot of waste that are going to happen. Yes, he can save his own pocket money, and he also add more value to his sales. Now, the processed foods are mostly converted from their natural state, and they are available in packed form, measured form, and they are available in an edible form. So, for example, if you take peas which are purchased from a commercial market, peas with shells, if you buy 100 grams one time from one shop, that may give you the edible portion of wheat 50 grams. But in another shop, it may give you 70 grams. Even it may give you 40 grams too. Whereas, if the peas is processed in industries or in processed sectors and packed in a proper way, if you take 100 grams package, definitely you will get 100 grams. That is what is the difference between a processed food portion control than unprocessed food portion control. Thus, the portion control is being ensured with the help of processed foods. And now the next importance is it adds variety to the diet. Yes, of course. Take an example. A fruit can be eaten as such, or a fruit can be converted into a juice, or food can be converted into a salad, or it can be converted into sauce, it can be converted into squash, or it can be converted into jams, jellies, marmalades, etc. only when you adopt processing techniques. Unless otherwise, you will have to eat fruits as fruits. Okay, so the food items, whatever is available in nature, is being converted into more variety with the help of food processing techniques. So food processing techniques always help us to get more number of dishes and more number of varied foods available in our shop. Yes, of course, food producer requires to give more variety to the consumer. Only if he gives more variety, the consumer turnover will be more. Hence, he prefers always processed foods than that of the unprocessed form. And economically, if you see, the processed foods are more money saving too. Yes. Products prepared from the natural state by using conventional method, it may swipe off your working time and money, because all the time what you require for preparing those food items which are not processed, they may take time for pre-preparation like peeling, chopping, pitting, cutting, coring, etc. And they require grinding. And for preparation of masalas and gravies, you require to make spice powders to get ready, for which you will have to roast the spices and dry it, grind it, and you will have to add it. Whereas processed ones need not require more steps at all, because all those steps are done in the industry itself, and it can even save the labor, it can even save the money for the producer is concerned. What else a producer is expecting? Food production industry is expecting to minimize, where to minimize all these costs. So today the trend that moves behind the processing food industry, including the food production sector, the reason is it is very, very economical. It can cut the labor cost, it can cut the energy cost, also it can save more money to him. This is the reason why food production industries nowadays go behind processed food sectors. Yes, processed food sectors are labor saving also. Shortage of working personnel in food service operations nowadays is more. All because food production industries are not offering more salary to the working personnel who are working in the organization. They pay more work, but they are getting less salary. But it's impossible for the food production industries also pay more for their work, what they are doing for the organization. So in that case, if this processed food items, they can cope up with what like a labor can do, two labor can do, that can be cut by one processed food, is always very interesting for him to go behind it. Yes, convenient foods always saves his labor requirement. For example, like preparation like masala powders, chutney powders, rasam powders does not require a person to do all these processes, because it is ready, only the cook will handle. So you don't require an assistant to grind or roast or powder or all these items. So this is how it helps the food production industries to save more labor cost. Apart from this, some other reasons are also there. Rising food prices. Today, the commercial availability of food items and also the food cost, more food cost, rising food cost. It is very difficult to get all the food items in a raw state. Whereas all the food items that are packed and processed, that are available all over the world, anywhere, in this common price or the same price, which is more convenient for everybody to buy those food products, and increasing labor salary. Today, the laborers who are working in the food production industry also expects more salary, because the manual work what they are putting inside the food production industry to make a dish is more and more important, and he is offering more amount of labor to the industry. So he is ultimately expecting more money from that industry. So that is impossible by the food service establishment to offer more salary. To cut those kind of difficulties, he goes for convenient foods or processed foods. And of course, today it's a shortage. There is a shortage of trained professionals or personals available for food production. Every food production requires more number of trained personnel, because handling food is not as easy as we think. Like converting a raw material into an edible, delicious, tasty food is not an easy task. It requires both man and mind. Unless the mind of a man has worked in it, it is tough to get a quality food and a tasty dish also. So the trained professionals are always required for the food production sectors. But today there is a demand for these kind of people. So to compensate this trained personal's demand, he is going behind the professional processed foods. Now, cost, it can control cost at various level of food production. More efficiency when adding processed foods, less equipments, food for special health needs. These are all the importance of processed foods in food production industries. So now, who are the users of processed foods in food industries? Or are the food production industries consuming foods? Yes. Global survey on commercial uses of processed foods reveal more than 50% of the processed foods manufactured in the companies were bought by 7 of the food items in food service outlets. Restaurants and cafeterias were preferring more processed foods, and next is fast food restaurants, motels and airline food service and organizations, and all the others enjoy the benefit of processed foods. Hospitals, schools and colleges, they take the benefits of processed foods. Schools and colleges require more unique and novel processed foods to introduce for their captive customers. They have flexibility in their planning, and they need more new product also, for which they require more processed foods. Airlines. Food service in airlines is so challenging, as it meets people from various regions of the world at same time, and their duty to introduce novel foods to the passengers. As it is very difficult to serve lengthy traditional foods in the flight, they always prefer to go for processed foods. Fast food industries, they generally have limited menu using prepared dishes with little garnishing. Nowadays, fast food outlets are taking their service off with a different dimension to several consumers. So, their need for menu planning depends upon the priorities of their corporate. Go for burgers, sandwiches, whereas the one which is near the school or college go for puffs and pastries. Anyways, fast food outlets give scope to the several processed food products. Restaurants. Family and fine dining restaurants prefer to serve guests with n number of dishes in the menu card. Preparing and making ready for several dishes practically not possible, and hence they seek for more multi-purpose product. Even though these restaurants have big spacious kitchen, they face a problem of high labor cost. So there is a necessary consideration were given to increase in use of convenient processed foods and automation in the restaurants. Yes. Military services. Army is a noble area of public service that prioritize the needs of employees, must fit for field and function. That it is the entire meal of an army man is even calculated for all kind of nutrients and provisionally supplemented with the required nutrients too. So the processed foods and some processed foods for travel during wartime is of more use. Processed foods generally popular among food service organizations are frozen foods, cakes, pastries, pickle products, drip foods, masala powders, oils, processed breakfast cereals, all types of flours, vermicelli, noodles, pasta, burger, pizza, sauces, etc. So thus to conclude, the processed food industry is the most promising food industry of the world, and also the most promising food industry for the food service outlets is concerned, as they have got so much of benefits, so many benefits. The taboos, but still the taboos that are existing among the public must have to be removed.